costs as much more is because it's a smaller unit. As far as the measurements of the cubicle or the module in back that we actually do within, we'll find that we need a minimum of about 70 to 72 inches of headroom to even get in there without punching over and getting our work done. I think that demonstratively is cost comparative. There was also an option, there was some discussion on that too, because I've been getting information that we weren't going to be able to do it anymore. However, I've gotten conflicting information that as long as it meets triple K specs, which the federal government requires of the ambulances, that it can still be done, and that's to remount a unit or reuse. For example, our Bravo 2 is a Lifeline unit. We have the option of sending that unit to the Lifeline factory. What they would do is actually pull the ambulance box off of the old chassis. They gut it, sandblast it, repaint it, rewire it, refurbish the cabinets, and then put that on a new chassis. So in essence, you're getting a brand new ambulance, but you're doing it at a cost of, right now it would be right around about $10,000 would be the cost difference of a remount versus brand new. The EV Plus quotes that you received there were two, one for they're both singular and purchase for one unit and purchase for 2 units at the same time. The first one is for McCoy Miller, and the second one is for Wheel Coach, and they both have the same what would be a Ford chassis and chassis. The difference would be in the boxes. And the difference between the McCoy Miller and the Wheel Coach, I do want you to know that they are built at the same factory on the same assembly line. However, they're built to different specifications. One of the things that I was explaining to Cash earlier, for instance, the McCoy Miller is spec'd out with a wider, sturdier wall that's extruded in the box as opposed to the Wheel Coach, which is thinner and goes a little bit different. The difference in the way they construct the cabinets and mold them. McCoy Miller tends to do single piece and round them off, whereas Wheel Coach is a little bit less expensive unit. They'll miter joints and square them off with little things like that. That's the difference in price. However, they both are good units. So, and to sum that up, I guess my recommendation, of course, I don't expect you to make a decision today. It would be nice, but I don't expect you to. I know you need to take this back and digest it and we need to see where things are with the budget. But given the quotes I received on the different units, and I'm also going off my 30 plus years of experience as a street medic, working in both Wheel Coach, Coy Miller, Road Rescue, AEV, you name it. I'm just going to give you my personal favorite and also the favorite of the department. We test drove these units. We sent people to test drive them. We also went to other departments and interviewed them as far as what's your history on maintenance costs, which unit do you like the best, which rides the most, which is most durable. Hands down, they all picked the McCoy Miller, which is the midline. Certainly not the cheapest, but it's not the most expensive either. So, right now they're bid for a unit, and they have 2 identical ones ready to ship, are 148, 498. Now, something that would need to be done also is these units would be flatbedded up from Florida, but they'd be shipped to the dealer, and that's where we would have the power cots that we purchased. There need to be cutouts made in the floor of the ambulance to accommodate those power orders, and that's something that usually is done at the factory. It can be done here, but at cost. So the factory would do that. I also would have them route the coaxial cable for the antennas for the radios that are going to be required to be in the ambulance. If that's done at the factory there, it would be a lot simpler than the technician trying to do it in the field here. And there's also the matter of graphics. Okay. The cost of swapping the radios out, one unit to another, would be approximately $940 per unit, which is in that second paragraph. The graphics, sky's the limit. We could probably spend as little as $800. I think the industry standard right now is anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. There's a triple KNFPA requirement now that you guys are starting to notice that the newer ambulances that have a very aggressive chevron in the back to try to prevent rear-end collisions. That's there for our safety, but it's greater cost. That would be, depending on what we choose, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, I would imagine. So, but given those choices and the fact that I would recommend the McCoy-Miller purchase to the board, I just wanted to summarize on the back there. Emergency Vehicles Plus, actually since we started talking to them in November and receiving quotes, we were talking about haggling a little bit in the supervisor's office the other day. They've been the most aggressive, I don't want to say aggressive, but the most cooperative as far as working with us. They've reduced the total price of the 2018 models, a total of $12,500, which the other dealer, of course, can come close to. They're offering free installation of the power cots and cots at their factory in Holland. There would be no charge for that, whereas it normally is about a $1,500 charge. And the terms that they're offering through their finance, and of course I also noted in here, I'm happy to elicit any quotes from local financial institutions that we already work with. I just included this one because it happened to be shipped with the quote from the unit. But if you're to purchase from them, they have the lowest interest rate at 3.7. They give the option of doing a 3, 5, or 7 year. And from delivery of the unit, we have 1 calendar year till the first payment is due. I guess the good thing about that is because of the way the collection is running on the taxes and how this equipment fund is going to be funded. My belief is, unless my numbers are way off, if we were to purchase 2 units at that price and percentage rate, it would be, well, a month from now, another calendar year out, 13 months. So the payment would be, and by that time, I believe we should have enough in the equipment fund for those 2 units to be paid off in one lump sum in cash, and we still have a great deal left over in the equipment fund. So that's my recommendation. However, like I said, I'm happy for you guys to, if you have any questions right now that I hopefully have the answers to, now would be the time. And
I have one.
Okay.
Following your recommendation, your front 2 sheets, the tax exempt leasing corp, that is through the EV Plus, is that their financing mechanism?
Yes, that's for EV Plus, and the other one you see in there, the community leasing, is the one that R&R currently uses on their sales, or the one that they recommend.
So McCoy is manufactured in Michigan?
They're manufactured in a suburb right outside of Orlando, Florida. A couple weeks ago, our Captain Hall was down there, and we had set up them to be able to tour the factory, look at the units, go down the line and see how they're actually built, and then test drive the different ones and get a good feel of how they're manufactured and then how they're on the road. We've actually, since October, have had several of our firefighters that travel to and visit different stations that operate out of the fire service, these types of ambulances and these brands, so that we could get some honest feedback from the street.
So the Holland, Michigan is the dealer?
Holland, Michigan is the dealer, and if you don't recognize the name, they don't do just ambulances. They do, if you see a school bus on the road in the state of Michigan, it probably came from them. So it's a very large facility down there. I said, he seemed to be most willing to try to accommodate us and understand the position we're in and give the price breaks. Yes, yeah.
So I think we have enough money now in the equipment fund to get one of them.
Yes.
Do you think that the payment options in here, the 3.7%, do you think that would be a good option if we were to take a loan or whatever it is on the next one, but get them both at once? Or do you think we can get something cheaper around town to finance second one?
This is a very good deal, but I would hesitate to give you a further recommendation without first getting, I mean, I hate to tell you, yeah, this is the deal without contacting our local financial institutions that we're already doing business with. I certainly think they deserve.
Well, and that would be, I think we're all on the same page there, because I'm looking at, the tax exempt leasing corp, and they have a valid quote of 14 days, which thankfully puts us right on our next Board of Trustees meeting. So maybe it would behoove the board, since we do have a fair amount of information to really digest. In the meantime, prior to, I think that I would rather, let's put this on our agenda for the 22nd, and before, if you can get any other financial, if you work with the clerk or the treasurer to look in what financial institutions that we currently are utilizing. That way, for our 22nd meeting, we can also look at the potentials of utilizing a local financier rather than, or if the 3.7 through tax exempt leases. APRs are always shuffling, so I mean, I think if we can explore that a little more in depth, and then we'll address it appropriately at the meeting on the 22nd.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, because if you look at our account now, we could probably purchase one right up front with the money we have in the millage, and maybe we could finance the second one, and in a year, when the money comes in from the millage again for next year, we can pay that second one right off, so.
Yeah.
Dave, do you know, is the dealer aware of the special rules for municipalities? We can't borrow money, can purchase things in installments.
Correct.
They know how to structure that.
Correct, and I believe that's where this, I don't want to call it deferred payment, but
Okay.
first payment due within a year. I think that's where that was born from. The one other little tidbit in there is what I'm hoping to accomplish from a fleet standpoint one would be fine, but if we could do two, is I would anticipate a savings or reduction in fleet maintenance costs of somewhere realistically around 40% on my maintenance budget right now, which I think you guys saw last year was, I think that would be significant, and that would, I would be hopeful that what I would save in let's talk 3 or 4% over the year for that first payment to come due, and say, gosh, that's a lot of money to have over our head for them to turn around and not blink about spending 10 grand a month on maintenance costs for, if you see where I'm going with that. So that's kind of my.
So if you contact a local vendor, they need to know about the installment.
That's the one last piece of the puzzle is this, and I do apologize, some of these just, I know they're dated like January and February, but what these dealers did is, because what they're doing is they're giving me 30-day options, and then as we're putting them out, what they're doing is pulling the email back, adjusting the numbers, but not the date, they're sending me the email. But we're doing 30-day holds on these price locks. So, and I did talk to the dealer yesterday, so we should be okay.
It's real informative. I don't know anything about ambulances, and I'm following it. So.
Trustee Lappin, did you?
I just have one quick question, Dave.
Yes, sir.
On the recommended vehicle that you're talking about, on the pricing of that unit and/or units, one of the discounts is for a volume discount. If we purchase 2 or more, that we get a $4,000 discount to that $12,500. So just so the board is aware that if we purchase one, we may forfeit a $4,000 discount.
The price quotes that I got from Mark at emergency vehicles, plus he actually indicated to me that while the quote says that, whether we buy 1 or 2 units, the price per unit would still, he would still honor that.
Maybe he can send you an email to that effect.
So,
Yeah.
I understand.
I guess the last parts, I think we have a plan of attack moving forward to the 22nd. My other supplementary questions are, I see that you have, and one is trade-in value. Which units are you looking at trading in? And in the time being, would it still behoove the department to, because we do have, as far as historically we've always known, basically a brand new motor and trans in the pose and potato, for lack of a better term. Would it still be cost effective to utilize that engine and trans in Bravo 1, even if we're trying to trade it in or sell? I mean, is it Bravo 1, I guess, in the scheme of things with the 4, well, technically now 3 in service, Bravo units? Which ones are you looking at getting rid of? And would it still be a potential of cost effectiveness to swap that in?
And I was gonna thanks for reminding me about that. On a technicality, Bravo 1 was a unit that was given over to us from the county. So regardless of what happens with that, it would go back to the county when we're done with it. And that's why I say that's where the question of do we put $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 into it and then turn it back over to, whereas we do technically own the other 3. So my guess right now, based on maintenance costs and reliability and stuff, I'm guessing we would look at being trading in Bravo 2 or Bravo 3, depending. Keep Bravo 4, but again, this is fluid. So, but that's the considerations that are being given. Now, as far as what he's offering is a solid $3,000 trade-in per unit. I also, let me backtrack just a second and let you know when I was quoting those costs for the graphics and such, we certainly could take that $3,000 and apply that toward the graphics package, which would keep basically, other than the radio installation, would keep the base price the same. And we'd end up getting a pretty wonderful graphics package from the factory for that trade-in. But and I will bring to the board the estimates on an engine swap.
So, well, I guess maybe if the engine swap would look at whatever Bravo unit that we're gonna keep. Because we do have, it doesn't need to swap, but if the county arrangement is that we give back that piece of equipment, i.e. Bravo 1, obviously then my previous statement would not behoove the township or the department at all. So would it also be something to, if we're gonna be handing that piece of equipment back to the county per the arrangement, behoove us to remove any ancillary equipment from in the meantime? So
yes. Yeah, we've already discussed that internally as a department.
Okay.
And
So I
I'll
guess-
give you examples of tires, putting new better tires on that unit.
Yeah, okay. So then,
Just to,
go ahead.
I'm just wondering, do we get a better rate of return on whatever investment fund that we might have this money sitting in?
What specific money are you talking about?
The equipment fund?
The equipment fund. Do we have any idea what we're making on that money?
It's in the bank,
In
In the-
what, just a
in the-
regular checking account or something?
right,
Oh, so we're not making any money on it then?
right.
Okay, so it'd probably be to our advantage to just buy it.
Given, yeah, but I think that's where we're kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
looking.
yeah.
Let's look at local financial institutions. When you come back, let's say, this is the item, this is the Bravo unit we're gonna keep, these are the 2 that we're trading in, let's definitely make a sound approach at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Moving forward. Are there any other questions? Sure.
Laura,
Pardon me?
you're my go-to person for that?
Yeah, we can check it out, because that's
See
what
what-
I,
see what
Cash and I
rates are.
spoke earlier too, and I said I think we should really check out our options. Just to see what fits us the best.
I'm thinking people are getting hungry too, so I'll try to do this one quicker. Lastly, I have two bills that I'm kind of, Michelle and I were not quite sure what to do with them, given the way the budget is structured. Now, the first one is for the invoice for the cots and power loaders that we bought from Stryker, whereas we certainly do have that money to spend. I did not, I'm assuming that's in its own fund and not in
It's
the
in it.
ambulance or fire replacement fund?
It's in the budget, and it's not combined with the other millage money.
Right.
It's in the public safety
I'm
fund
looking-
bank.
I'm looking.
It's
It's in a revenue line.
It is in,
But we didn't budget it in an
yes.
expense line because we
Yeah.
didn't.
It's
To
right
be
on.
short, what I'm looking for is guidance on how do we get to do this, Lee? How do we get the money out of that fund into the 205-336-731-000, which would be medical operational equipment and supplies, so that we can pay, we have a line item to pay Stryker, which is a,
$63,000 and change.
what did you have?
For the striker, for the two power cots and support?
Yeah, I have 6907-176.
Where it's at.
Yeah,
So
We have to do a
I'd
budget
like a line item
So-
coded on so that we can.
We need to do a budget.
so I guess, and what line item are you looking to move funds to?
To 205,
Yep,
336,
yep.
731-000.
Okay, so,
And then go ahead and get Stryker.
so then I would entertain a motion to transfer $70,000 from revenue line item 205-000-403.001 fire equipment village public safety that is currently showing $225,090 to be transferred to the line item that the chief has presented.
What's the name of that other one? You said fire equipment?
That medical operational supplies.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I will make a motion to exactly what you said.
Okay,
I'll support.
motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes.
The remaining bill I have is for two of our department members attended medical first responder class, successfully completed it in our license. We have received the bill for tuition books, et cetera, from the city who sponsored the class, which is a total of, and these of course were approved prior to $1,270 for both students, $635 per. And again, the only training item I have on the budget is 205-336-704, which is in-house training. And to be able to write, the only thing I can kind of defend right now is maybe transfer that money out of the paid on call line item to the training line item, and then be able to put a check to the city.
Okay, and these trainings were for paid on-call individuals for MFR?
Yes, and I also want the board to just to jog your memory that once they have completed a full year of service, I then can apply to the county to have those reimbursement for those funds.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to transfer, how much was the total, Mr. Brown? 1,270.
I thought you said that was per person.
No,
635
635.
per person.
I'm sorry.
So, to transfer $1,270 from line item 205-336 702.140 to line item, where was it again? 205-336-704.040. There's a motion.
040?
040. There's a motion on the table. Is there support?
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further
Who made the
discussion?
motion?
Lappin, supported by Kroll. Any further discussion? Hearing none or seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Do you guys have any other things for me? That's all I have.
I have
Yes.
one more thing. Are we going to post the position for Mike Kinspire?
And how would you like to, if you would like to proceed with posting, are you looking
Yeah.
internally?
That's my
The
recommendation.
clerk's office can start posting that position.
Yeah, just as a, as a side note, as long as, as soon as, well, Michael's vacated the position, given the size of our department, we're on what we call super overtime, which it will affect the budget toward the end of the year, so
So we need to get it
quicker we
posted.
can start the process.
We will get it posted.
So I would entertain a motion to the effect to allow the clerk and our chief to move forward with putting together a job posting for replacement of Mike Kent in the fire department, effective immediately.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
Do you have any idea of any person in the back of your head that you might be able to just contact that may fill a position? In addition to whatever, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that's gonna come forward.
We still have to.
Yeah, generally, to give you a history of the kind of the long-standing history behind the department is traditionally the full-time have been recruited and hired from the ranks of the paid on-call because they, of course, have spent time in, know the system, how it works, et cetera, et cetera. There is, however, a higher bar, so to speak, for full-time officers as opposed to, but having said that, most of our regular 8-hour, our irregular 8-hour personnel meet the requirements of that officer posting, and to the best of my knowledge right now, there's, I believe, 3 or 4 meet those qualifications that have the opportunity to apply for that full-time position from within the department.
Yeah, so you two can get together and move forward in regards to that. We'll have some costs associated with it, so if there's no other discussion, is roll call vote, please.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Dunkel,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Thank you, Dave. We're now moving into the second opportunity for public comment. If there's any public comment, please stand to the podium, state your name, your address, and limit yourself to 3 minutes.
We already talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, I covered DPW kind of intermittently. Seeing no or hearing no public comment, we'll move on to the next item of discussion. We have members of the South Bay Corridor, representative from Straley, R.S. Scott. So we wanted to have a conversation in regards to funding requests that were brought forward prior to budget amendments moving into this fiscal. So that's why we invited to have open discussion. I guess, are there any trustees or Larry or anybody else from the group that would like to represent? I mean, that way, no, by all means, Larry.
You know me, I like.
I know, hey. Larry Clark, 109 Fairpoint Road.
Memorize my address too. I've never seen this.
Well, there's not another address to the east of yours, so I mean, it's called Lake Shore.
Just County, while I was sitting here listening to some of your presentations,
that I've been to approximately 60 board meetings and probably nearly that many planning commission meetings. So, as going back to 2012 actually. But with that, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later if you'll indulge me a bit. With that though, I'd like to thank Nathan for inviting us to come in and do open with our remarks and also have a round table, for lack of a better term, just a general discussion on the vision we see for South Bay and more importantly for Alpena Township. We have several members from our group here today, as you mentioned. Norm, first of all, I'd also like to thank you. I know you talked about Young and helped put this together. I appreciate that. In addition to two board members, which are right in front of you, that being Nathan and myself, we also have Dennis Schultz is here as a former board member. He has a couple of comments. And Bob Young, of course, and Katie Wolf, and also Mark Straley, of course, who you all know, and he is doing the preliminary surveying, engineering, and design work for the bike path extension in 45th Parallel Park. So I'm not going to, I know it's uncharacteristic, but I'm going to go ahead and turn everything over to them. If I could reserve a couple minutes at the sometime toward the end of our conversation, I would appreciate that. But Mark has brought some show and tell information for you to show you the planning, some of the planning he's done to date, and talk a little bit about locations, process, procedures, and so forth.
This is always difficult in a meeting like this, but it's the township that I want to make sure sees what we're talking about out there, and then a brief report of where we're headed. This is really broken down into 3 parts. Pathway that would start at Island Drive.
Can you hold them up so I can?
Yes. It would start at Island Drive. There's already a pathway to the north of that. This new project would pick up and go south to Squaw Bay.
Does that mean that the bike path stops at Island?
Correct, currently it does.
It stops there.
Okay.
We didn't coordinate with the Alpena News, but the reporting that's been done this week about the future of Alpena, particularly young people and what they're coming here to look for, this project plays just directly into it. The timing couldn't have been better. These are the types of projects that throughout the state of Michigan are gaining all kinds of traction, and the competition for money to build these is stiff. So we're in line with basically what's going on in the rest of the world of Michigan. So we're trying to get a recreational project to promote access via bike path, walking path, picking up on the existing path and pushing it forward out to Squaw Bay.
South Partridge Point.
Yeah, to South Partridge Point Road. So that pathway would encroach upon the front yards. There's 20 drives in this area. Our first attempt at the design on this was to come through the back so we wouldn't disturb those people. And we just ran out of traction. It's private property. The township has an easement back there, but it just didn't come together. The property owners don't want to part with that. So we're back out on 23.
How do they feel about that, the property owners?
That would be not our next step, but probably the step after that. We recognize this is a big effect on their property. We also recognize that this property is owned by the Michigan Department of Transportation. So while we're sensitive to their needs, we do have a public right-of-way to go into. We've met with MDOT a couple of times, and we've gone back and forth on a location. Our last meeting with them 6 weeks ago or so, approve's not the right word. They've given us a nod that if we place this pathway at the back of the existing ditch, that they would entertain us applying for a permit to put it there. In other words, they don't want it out on the edge of the shoulder. We don't want it back, all the way back on the right of way, because the property owners would step out of their doorstep onto the path. So we've
In
come
some
to,
instances, out of their kitchen.
that's right. So we've come to this compromise. This is part of engineering, part of design. It's a repetitive process until you get what's gonna satisfy the most people.
Mark, I'm gonna ask you to look into your crystal ball for a
Okay.
minute. Is there any future plans of expanding 23 to a 3-lane or a 4-lane or anything like that that would impact this?
Yes, and that's a good point, because there is no planned expansion. However, if development took place out there, particularly if it was commercial development, I think the next step would be a left turn lane, a middle left turn lane. We would be back far enough that it wouldn't affect us. But our permit from MDOT would always be that if they needed that area, we're out. We recognize that, and we're pretty safe. I would say that the next time MDOT will be in here working on this is probably 10 to 15 years from now. It's not imminent. And when they go to 3 lanes, most likely they'd curb and gutter out there and put storm sewer in, which we would still be okay.
Now, right?
Stops at five.
Doesn't the left turn lane essentially stop at Island Drive now?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. There's also a speed limit change right in the middle of our project too.
And just for clarification, so that the board, obviously Patty O'Donnell, which was a representative working through MDOT, has since retired.
Yes.
Are you utilizing local, are you using Mr. Wilson at the local?
We
or are
were,
you?
and he retired last week.
Yeah, I know, that's where that's like, because
Right.
they're dropping off quite rapidly, so.
I suspect Kevin Shadegg will be there
Okay.
for quite a while. Kevin was involved in the meeting, and he knows that we're looking at the back of the ditch. He's also got just a world of experience of doing pathways, so he understands just where we're coming from with this. So across these front yards, we are going to be we're promoting the back of the ditch. When we get past those driveways, we want to get farther back. There's a power line easement that's in there. We want to get off the road, leave that buffer of trees in there. We've got a couple of commercial drives that we would have to cross and deal with. And we would get out to South Partridge Point Road. At that point, we're looking at one of the key parts of this development, and that is a park out off of US 23 and South Partridge Point Road. When we began this project, this was not available. We were looking at putting some type of a build-out rest area right where the 45th parallel sign is. The reason we were doing that is it is a traffic safety issue. People go by that, they want to stop and get their picture taken with that sign. It's a unique location. So we want to duplicate that sign, put it in our park. More critical to that is the uniqueness of Squaw Bay. You don't have natural destinations like that hardly any place in Michigan. There's some in the UP, but this is really a gem of northeast Michigan, of the Alpena area. So a small piece of private property became available, and the committee's been working with the property owner, and they've come to an agreement. They have an offer on the table dependent upon us going through and surviving our next step, which is environmental. There's no argument. We're going to be dealing with wetland along the power line. Likely this piece of property is wetland. We are We are certain that this is above the ordinary high water mark of Lake Huron, so there are possibilities. My guess is that most of this corner is man-made fill. We just don't know it yet. We haven't cut any holes in it. So to that end, we have a proposal sitting ready to be approved by Dr. Chris Grobel. He's a biologist, specializes in this type of work. He will evaluate the wetlands and map them, and he will also take a look at threatened and endangered species through the process. We can't move forward till we know if we've got a game stopper. And for the 5 years that I've been involved with this, I've been telling the group there are a lot of hurdles to get over for a project like this. We're clearing them. We've got momentum and we're getting along here pretty well. But this environmental is a big deal. In talking with Dr. Grobel, he said, till I get on the ground, I can't tell you what's out there, but it's almost inevitable you will run into issues. He said, then it's how do you deal with them to get through the DEQ to get a permittable project. Once we get a feeling that we've got a permittable project, then South Bay is committed to buying this chunk of land.
I happened to drive out to 23 the other day, and I was surprised at how high Lake Huron was.
Yes.
I don't know that I've ever seen it that high. How much of that is impacted there? Do you have any idea?
Well, the line that we have to design around, it's an elevation set by the Corps of Engineers. It's the ordinary high water mark of Lake Huron. It's 589.7 feet above sea level. It's a very distinct number. So we've taken a few shots out there to know that this core area is above that number. Probably some of these edges are below it. We have no intention of going beyond that number or asking permission to go beyond that number. That's our border. We would like to go out there with a elevated dock type platform, a walkway, and then get out to the edge of the property and have some type of a pavilion, a bird watching area, something where humans can access Squaw Bay. There is an environmental easement set by the state of Michigan over portions of Squaw Bay. We're pretty sure we're outside of that. This is the property line, roughly, of this piece of property. But we're gonna have to establish that, and then from DNR, Land and Water Management Division, they need to give us the written description of where that easement, that environmental easement goes. They've indicated to us we're pretty safe here, but we need to make sure.
Would that walkway be impacted by water and ice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you rectify that?
You design it, and it's anticipated it'll be underwater. I would also anticipate that the ice movement in this, the risk of the wind coming directly out of the east, directly as the ice breaks up and pushing everything into this is pretty remote, but we will study that. We'll take a look at it. As far as the melting and the moving of the ice in there every year, this is a fairly common thing to be able to do. The ice breaks free from the piling that is into the ground. We don't know what kind of piling we're going to have on this yet, whether it'll be like 6x6 treated timber, or it may end up having to be concrete drilled and grouted so we get down into the limestone. We know it's all limestone up in here, back in here, but how deep is it here? Are we sitting in a pocket of muck? We don't know that answer yet. So,
Unit swale complex, so high organic level of receding water lines, you never know what you're gonna find.
we don't know what we're gonna hit there. US 23 doesn't seem to be sinking, so we think we're okay as far as getting the soils in there. Once we clear the environmental hurdle, the next thing would be to close on the property for the park. After that, we would be looking at permittable projects from DEQ. And along those lines, we're going to start looking for money to construct. When Larry first came into my office 5 years ago, and he laid this out to me, I told him that, number one, I believe that this project will happen eventually because it's a good project. Number two, within an hour, I told him I felt that the overall concept they had was going to cost in the neighborhood of $25 million, coming from a lot of different places, most of it with the road reconstruction. And number three, Larry, you and I will probably not be alive when all of this gets approved. So we're 5 years into this, we're still slowly moving forward, but we're being very conservative about how we spend money because it's very limited. So we're trying to go about this in a very well thought out, step-by-step manner. And that's where we're at in this right now. We think we have something here that the community of Alpena will like to have. And step by step, we're moving forward. So Larry, I don't know.
Yeah, I have one question.
Yeah.
Because when I'm listening, are the bike path extension and the potential of the pool gym property running concurrently?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. With environmental clearance being the next step.
yes.
Any other questions for Mark?
Trust the board.
Yes.
So if this environmental, that doesn't pass, what effect does that have on the bike path?
If we got a flat out, dead, no way from DEQ, this is dead. We don't think we're going to get that. Almost every environmental issue, if well thought out and planned